This video is sponsored by Squarespace. Just this morning I got out of the shower and I started thinking about how insane it is that we slowly wean kids off of physical activity in school. It's like preschool, you're just playing all the time. Just constant physical activity. Kindergarten, you got like 3 or 4 recesses. First grade, 2 recesses. Second grade, I don't know, maybe 2. Then I think by 3rd grade, you're down to just 1. If not 3rd, then 4th. Actually, in 4th, you might not even get recess. Now you just have gym class, which is like maybe twice a week. But I think for most gym classes, it's once a week. So you get 1 class of physical activity in a week. And that just seems so counter to how human beings were designed to operate in the world. And that brings me to adult ADHD and the struggle that has been being an adult in this world, in this society that we live in, which I think is failing us in many ways. So let me give you my history with ADHD, diagnosis, all that stuff, and then also some of the things I've learned about it, what's worked, some of the questions and issues I still have with it, so kind of what's not working, and maybe, I think I need to give it a little bit more thought, but maybe paint a picture of how it could work if we decided collectively to work in a slightly different way. Let me start by saying I'm not a complainer. It's like, I don't know, can you even say that? You sound like a complainer when you say I'm not a complainer, but I generally try not to complain. I don't like the sound of whining. I don't like the sound of myself whining. I don't like coming off as ungrateful or complainy. So videos like this are never easy for me to make, but here we are. So as a kid, I didn't know what ADHD was. And my whole theory of ADHD, even as an adult, sort of lines up with how I was as a kid, which is I operated in a slightly different way in the world than my peers, and that's totally fine. I had a pretty massive speech impediment when I was a kid. I was very energetic. I spent all day, every day, just running around, just outside all the time, playing nonstop, curious about stuff, learning how to fix stuff and take stuff apart and put stuff together and destroying some stuff and hopefully building some stuff. Yeah, then got into school, and thankfully, or luckily, or I'm not even sure why this happened, but by the grace of God, just was interested in the topics in school. And it really is that interest or that curiosity that made me able to do well all throughout elementary, middle, and high school. The caveat to that was I just never did homework. I could never bring myself to do homework. Something that I've learned about myself with ADHD is when a rule or a task or a law or an assignment makes sense, when it logically makes sense to me, then it's very hard to get me to break that rule. But if a rule doesn't make sense to me, if I can't make it make sense, then it's very hard to get me to do that thing. And homework was always like that, because in my mind, I thought if I understand the concept, if I know how to do this, if I can perform well on the test, why would I waste my time practicing this thing that I already know how to do? So getting zeros on homework scores was the reason that I was not a straight A student, but nevertheless did well in school. Got to college, and if it's not broke, don't fix it. I just kept doing the same stuff I did in high school in college, which was not doing homework. The way that I would write papers, I would say 90% of the papers that I wrote in college, I would go out, I'd be hanging out with Amber, we'd be having a blast, it'd get late. She was already done with her homework. She was a get done with homework before you hang out with anybody person. I was whatever the opposite of that was. So hanging out, having a blast. We'd stay up very late. I love sleep. I'm a big napper. So I would have slept previously in the afternoon, stay up very late, go to bed around 1 or 2 or 3, then wake up 6 a.m., sit down at my computer. Everyone's still asleep. I'm in the zone. Maybe it's still dark out. Bam, just slam out a paper. Just one page, 2 page, 3 page, print it, go and hand it in, 8 a.m. class. And the issue, or maybe not issue, was I would do very well. I would get remarks like, hey, great thoughts here. Fantastic work. Wow, I love when professors would write stuff like that. I soak that stuff up. That's something that I have also learned about myself is external validation is probably more important to me than I want it to be. But anyway, would soak that stuff up. Again, would never do homework. If there was a homework grade, I would always get zeros on my homework score. But it was always kind of this playful little game that I had with all my professors where I was like, yeah, Cody doesn't do homework. He's smart. He's interested in stuff. He's talkative, engages in class. Like I would always get 100 I'd always get an A plus 100 on the in-class engagement score because I loved having conversations about like fun conceptual topics. Whatever, like we're here, we're doing this, we're paying a lot of money for it. I didn't really think about that when I was in college, but you know, let's engage. Graduated from college, got my first office job. I was actually working for the college. I was trying to raise money, and that's when the kind of stress level and the coping mechanisms that I had used to complete all of the tasks I had completed up until that point in my life sort of just fell apart. I wasn't setting up enough meetings. I wasn't hitting my goals, my fundraising goals, or anywhere near my fundraising goals, and just started to realize like this job isn't for me. I don't have what it takes to do the kind of mind-numbing work of setting up meetings. I'm great in the meetings. If someone could set up all the meetings for me, I could go and I could just do meetings, but it's the setting up the meetings that I have an issue with. So left that job after 2.5 years, and that's when I started my own thing, partnered up with my partners. We started Cap Collective. Really still struggled with all of that stuff. Namely, like the main thing being, it takes kind of slow, methodical work to build a business, to do sort of anything. It's like, unless you have people who can come in and do that slow, methodical work for you, you as a business owner have to do all of the aspects of business, and a lot of the aspects of business are slow and methodical. So really struggled with getting clients, with getting client work done on time. Again, would just wait until the last minute, get down, all pistons firing, hyper focus, like feeling like the Flash, get a bunch of stuff done, and send it over last minute. And sometimes that would work, and sometimes it would take longer than I thought it was gonna take me. Wouldn't leave enough time, so it would be late, so clients would be upset. Yeah, and really started to get down on myself, I think, about that and the whole process, and like started to go into some downward spirals. And it was at this point, I think it was actually, when was I diagnosed with ADHD?
You were diagnosed with ADHD on June 4th, 2013.
11 years ago. Just over 11 years and a month ago, I said to Amber, hey, I think I should go talk to a doctor about ADHD. I've always known that I've had ADHD. I've always been able to cope with it. It's always not been a problem. It's always been an asset. But now it seems like all of my problems are related to it, and I can no longer cope with it. I think I should go talk to a doctor about it. She encouraged me to do it. I did, got diagnosed with ADHD, then sort of started on the journey of, okay, you know you have this thing, you're diagnosed, what does life look like now, you know? What does life look like now? So over the last 11 years, some of the main things that I've learned. Quick word about the sponsor of the video, Squarespace. With the new Fluid engine from Squarespace, making the website of your dreams has never been easier. You start out with this professionally designed template. You don't need to know how to code, already made for you. And then you can tweak it using this brand new UI, drag and drop, very easy to use. Your website is gonna work on both desktop and mobile, which is absolutely crucial. You can schedule appointments through your site, offer private sessions, coaching calls, workshops, and then when you're ready to make some tweaks and improvements, the analytics suite inside Squarespace is second to none. If you want to try it out, go to squarespace.com/CodyWarner, and then when you're ready to buy, use the code CodyWarner to get 10% off your first purchase of a domain or website. Back to what I was talking about at the start of this, I think it's insane that society wants us, for the most part, to sit at a desk for like 9 hours a day, taking meetings, writing emails, just not moving. Like, so much of my just natural drive is to just go move my body, to go and do things. So naturally, I'm drawn to sports, I'm drawn to exercise, I'm drawn to going to get coffee, being in a city where there's some walkable stuff, like going to in-person meetings where you have to actually go there, like just moving around. I am drawn to that. But so much of the world, so much of my world is not physical. It does not happen in physical space. It is digital and it is virtual. And that's really hard for me. It is so much easier for me to fix a problem or to work on a problem when that problem is literally tangibly in my hands or in my face. Like right here, I can see it, I can touch it, I can work on it. And don't get me wrong, like I love concepts. I love sitting around and talking conceptually. I love concept. I spend most of my waking hours just daydreaming about different concepts. So I love concepts, but when it comes to productivity and problem solving and actually like doing things, it is much easier for me to do them in a hands-on way if I can physically move things around. So much easier for me to do it that way. But also simultaneously get bored with doing things over and over. It's not just that I am a physical person, it is that I am a physical person who desires novelty and new problems to face. So like, you could say, Cody, why don't you get a job in the trades? Like, because I literally don't want to become a specialist at any one trade and then have to do that thing over and over. Like, that just sounds just as mind-numbing almost as writing emails, trying to set up meetings. So along with that, when it comes to work, when it comes to jobs, I have learned that it is very easy for me to feel trapped, to feel mentally trapped. I've talked about even feeling trapped inside of my computer screen. My computer screen is right here, and I just spend all my time looking at it. I'm like on my computer, I'm like trapped inside my computer. And that is just like very terrifying. It's crazy because I'm not really physically claustrophobic. I can be in tight spaces for the most part. Like if you put me in a tight space and we're like, yeah, you're never getting out. Yeah, that'd be terrifying. But I can manage tight spaces physically. I have not been able to figure out how to manage tight spaces conceptually or intellectually. Very easy for me to feel trapped, like I've chosen this thing and I'm gonna have to do this thing forever. And that's something that a lot of people with ADHD struggle with. When it does come to productivity, I have found that deadlines, probably no surprise to you, deadlines are extremely important. They have to be real deadlines with almost tangible consequences for not hitting them. And they have to be kind of front and center. I have to see them. I have to see that they are there. And they have to be front and center. I have to be reminded of them. They have to be pressing, I still often miss them again because I don't, as the deadline gives me the motivation and kind of the focus and the brain space to start the process of completing something, I get very into the components of completing that thing. Like once I'm in it, I can get very into it and very tiny, very like granular into the nitty-gritty of it. And sometimes that happens to the point where I've spent 3 hours perfecting a small part of a bigger project, but that bigger project was due 2 hours ago. Yeah, deadlines are super important, but mostly just to get me to start. And then just having a deadline is not a surefire way to get me to give something to a client at the time of the deadline. That's like one of the things that I wish that I could explain to people before they work with me. There's so much of ADHD is like, I wish I could just explain this to you in my ADHD world. And there's TikTok series about this as well, where it's like, if we lived in a world that was created and dictated by ADHD people and all of this stuff was just normal, what if the purpose of a deadline was to get you to start? It wasn't actually the time that the thing needed to be done. Like, obviously then maybe it wouldn't work. Maybe a deadline wouldn't work in that way. I don't know. It's something that I think about a lot. I think you spend a lot of time with ADHD feeling misunderstood. Like you feel, if only I could explain to you in a way that made sense to you that I don't mean to be flaky or disrespectful or not valuing your time. Like all of that stuff is actually very important to me. My brain won't do what I want it to do when I want it to do it. Yeah, I don't know. That's like a hard thing. So something I learned and then sort of added to, I learned about this thing called NICU, a NICU score, and then I added the letters S and T to the end of it. So now it's like NIKAS, but it is motivating for me to do something when it is new, if it's in some way interesting, if it's in some way challenging, but the right kind of challenging, not too challenging, but also not a challenge. Like it's got to be that kind of flow state challenging. That's NICU is the deadlines. That's urgent. If something's urgent, if something urgently needs done, if you are looking at a problem, if you are just literally standing in front of a chasm and there is the materials to build a bridge next to you, and you have the tools to build a bridge on the other side of you, and you urgently need to get over there because, I don't know, your family's hungry and the food's over there, I will build that bridge so fast. That urgency thing is just like, it is one of the biggest factors of my productivity and how I get anything done. But again, it's gotta be real. It's gotta be real, tangible urgency, because I've tried to manufacture urgency many different ways in my life to try to get myself to do what I want to do. And manufactured urgency oftentimes for me does not work, which is a bummer. Yeah, so the S and T, the S is stakes. So that's more like, why do you need to build the bridge? If the stakes of building the bridge are just like, because it would be fun, I still might do it just because it's interesting or challenging. But if it wasn't interesting or challenging, and if it was a boring task, but the stakes were high enough, I probably still would get the motivation to be able to do it because the stakes felt so high. When something feels important, as though the stakes are high, if I do not complete this thing, then it's easier for me to do that. Again, if the thing is conceptual, but the stakes are high, my brain doesn't always connect those dots. I have to really work hard to daily try to connect those dots and make that conceptual thing as tangible, as physical as possible, so that I start to try to solve some of those problems that are long-term, that are conceptual. Like saving for retirement, for instance. It's kind of so abstract, but it's something that needs to be taken action toward almost daily, or else you'll just forget to do it for 10 years. But it's kind of so abstract that it doesn't feel like it's right in front of you, and it doesn't feel like you can take any one action to kind of solve it. You know, you can't like fix retirement right now. There's a bunch of pieces of a puzzle that you're putting together, and then the finished 1,000-piece puzzle is a good retirement, right? Even when the stakes are higher at something, I still get extremely frustrated about like not being able to do that thing, because that thing is more conceptual and more abstract than my brain seems to be able to handle. So the thing, the superpower thing, the hyper-focus thing doesn't kick in on it. And that's like extremely frustrating. The last one in NIKAS is T. That's together. That's like body doubling. You know, when I'm with somebody, if I'm sitting with somebody, or if I'm working on a team towards something and it has some of these other components, you know, it's much easier for me to just do some of that hard, mundane work if someone is with me. That's another challenging thing. Like, that's another challenging thing, you know? I don't have a coworker that I make videos with. That would be amazing, but that hasn't been what I have created or designed yet. So that has been another challenging thing. So all those things sort of do boil down to stress. Like, you know, I work well under stress. There's a trope or cliche, maybe it's not for you, it is for me at this point, but like people with ADHD often do very well under pressure or in high stakes, high pressure situations, but they don't do well in like normal day-to-day life situations. And that's like both funny, but also kind of super sad. But, you know, high stakes, high pressure situations, that is stress. You're putting stress on yourself, and then you're performing well under that stress, right? The issue sort of is like, what if I don't want to live in a perpetually stressed out state, you know? Like, if stress is the only way to make me meet my goals and do the stuff that I want to do, then it tracks that you should just kind of create that stress daily so that you just do, you know, you do the stuff that you need to do. But finding that balance is not something that I have done. And I think it's hard for maybe a lot of people with ADHD to do. To just not feel like you're in this constant state of adrenaline facing this thing in front of you and not get burnt out, you know? That's like crazy. That's a crazy thing. So when it comes to medication for it, I've tried 3 of the main ones. Right now I'm on Vyvanse, and that is the only one that has ever worked in a way without creating so many negative side effects that I've continued to be on it and to take it. I think expectations going into medication when you have ADHD is a huge thing, because I don't think that anyone should expect for a medication to fix the problems or fix the hard stuff of ADHD. I think what it helps you do is manage some of the hard parts of ADHD. And when I go in with that expectation, it's a lot less frustrating. You know, I'm not gonna be able to take this medication and then automatically be able to just work on boring stuff, sit at my desk for 8 hours a day, writing emails, doing some of that rote work, some of that really important mundane work. I'm still not going to be able to do that. But it is going to make it a little bit easier for me to get to the place where I'm like, all right, I am just going to sit here and crush this day, and I have the motivation necessary. I know that I need to do this. I'm going to do it. It makes it slightly easier to manage some of that hard stuff. So that has been helpful for me for sure. Rejection sensitive dysphoria is just the idea that when you get told no, or when you feel rejected, even if you don't get like explicitly told no, just you feel rejected, you can go into one of those spirals. And it kind of goes along with that need for external recognition that I've experienced. Sometimes I think I interpret non-recognition as rejection, and then can go into this crazy spiral about being rejected. I don't know, and have that really negatively affect like kind of my mood or attitude, or again, productivity. And just get so caught up just thinking, just kind of thinking about all of the stuff. And that can be super tough. So that's a lot of the challenges. I do feel very good about the type of person that I am, about how my brain works. I do think a lot about how, life in 2024, there's a lot of components of it that are not designed to complement well a brain that has ADHD. So I don't know. I think just knowing that is helpful. I don't want to be sitting around thinking like, oh, woe is me. If I just had a different brain, this would all be easier. I do think that a lot. But I don't want to I don't want to sit in that place for too long. And so it is, I guess, a little bit heartening to think about, this world wasn't really designed with me in mind. So it's gonna feel different to me. I'm gonna have to take different action, 43 minutes. What a long video. Right along with that, there are components of hyperfocus. There are components of creativity and connecting ideas in different ways that, I really think make me me. They feel like they make me me. And so I would never wish those things away. So yeah, that's been my experience thus far. It is 2024. It is summer 2024. My thoughts about ADHD as they currently stand. So would love to hear your thoughts. Thanks so much for being here. I'll see you in the next one.